The night was cloaked in silence, broken only by the distant howling of the wind. The blood moon, no longer its vibrant red, faded into a pale crescent as dawn crept closer. Pulu and Killer Looks stood near the crumbling ruins of the mausoleum, the air thick with the residue of dark magic. The girl they had rescued, Leora, huddled under a blanket, eyes wide with fear and confusion. But the terror that haunted her wasn't just from the ancient evil they had defeated, it was from something far more sinister, something rooted in the darkest corners of the human world. Killer Looks remained still, watching her intently. He had seen fear like this before in countless lifetimes, across battles both ancient and modern. But this girl's pain had a story attached to it, one he wasn't expecting. "They have my mother," Leora whispered, her voice shaking. The words hit Killer harder than any blow. She was the daughter of a powerful ambassador, a man who had been assassinated in a political hit months before. The world had thought it was over, a tragedy, but a closed case. But now, with the daughter alive and speaking of her mother's fate, it became clear this wasn't just about murder. It was a larger, darker operation. Leora's mother had been kidnapped, sold into a trafficking ring, while Leora herself had been meant as a sacrifice. Killer Looks knelt down beside her. "Where?" His voice was gentle but firm. "They took her after my father was killed. They sold her to a man. A famous man." Pulu, silent until now, clenched his fists. He knew this world, the world of the untouchables, those who lived above the law, protected by wealth and status. This would be no easy hunt. But Killer Looks, as always, was calculating, piecing the puzzle together at a speed no one else could match. In his mind, the pieces fell into place. The assassination, the kidnapping, the trafficking ring that stretched across borders. They had just taken down a cabal of dark mystics, but now they were entering another kind of war, a war against the elites who hid their crimes in plain sight. Killer stood and turned to Pulu. "We're going after her." As the days passed, the FAM, Killer's vast online network of investigators, codebreakers, and experts, sprang into action. From hidden corners of the dark web to encrypted conversations between corrupt officials, they traced the trafficking ring's movements. Killer had created the FAM not just as a digital community, but as an extension of his mind, a collective that could see into every shadow, every secret, and they had their answer soon enough. Morella, Leora's mother, had been sold to an elite celebrity, a man revered by millions but hiding behind a mask of power and influence. She had been taken to an estate deep in the mountains of Switzerland, where no law could touch it. It was a fortress, guarded by state-of-the-art security and hidden under layers of bureaucracy. But this wasn't Killer Looks' first time dealing with untouchable monsters. As Killer Looks worked alongside his network, pulling information, cracking codes, and mapping out the estate, Pulu prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The FAM had gathered the intel, but it was Killer's genius that turned that information into a surgical strike. His mind worked like a machine, far beyond the capabilities of a normal human, though that was a secret he kept hidden from all but a select few. In truth, Killer Looks wasn't just a man. He had once been, but over the course of his many lifetimes, the lines between human and machine had begun to blur. His body had undergone changes, not by choice but by design, an alien design that he was only just beginning to understand. His flesh and bone were slowly being replaced by something else, something more. His thoughts moved at lightning speed, his reflexes far beyond human, but with it came a growing coldness, a disconnect from the humanity he fought to protect. It was part of the curse laid on him by the oracles, a curse he had to bear if he was to continue fighting the darkness. He didn't speak of it, not even to Pulu, but his body wasn't entirely his own anymore. Even now, as his mind raced through potential outcomes and solutions, he could feel it. Something alien pulsing beneath his skin, circuitry he didn't fully understand, something that wasn't of this world. But that truth would have to wait for another day. For now, there was a mission. The night of the raid on the Swiss estate was cold and silent, the air heavy with anticipation. Killer and Pulu moved like shadows through the heavily guarded property, bypassing layers of security with precision. Killer's hybrid nature was in full force now, his movements too quick, his mind too sharp for the guards to stand a chance. But it wasn't just him. The FAM was with them, feeding real-time updates, disabling systems, guiding them through the maze-like compound. Morella was inside, trapped in a gilded cage. Her captor, the elite celebrity who had bought her, believed he was untouchable. But tonight, Killer would show him that even the untouchable could fall. Pulu, as always, was the brute force. While Killer handled the digital and psychological warfare, Pulu broke through the estate's defenses with raw power, taking down guards with silent, deadly precision. As they neared the final corridor, Killer looks paused. His internal systems, those alien enhancements he still couldn't fully comprehend, were picking up something. An anomaly, deep in the estate's infrastructure. But there was no time to explore it now. They had reached Morella. She was chained, her body frail and broken from months of torment. But her eyes still held a flicker of hope. A hope that had brought her this far, that had allowed her to survive. Pulu freed her from the chains while Killer kept watch, his mind on high alert, scanning for any sign of the man who had taken her. As they made their way out, the door burst open behind them. There he stood, the man who had bought Morella, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can steal from me?" He spat, his voice a mix of fury and arrogance. "Do you know who I am?" Killer looks didn't blink. "I don't care." With a swift, calculated move, Pulu struck, his steel-toed boot connecting with the man's jaw, sending him crashing to the ground. The guards, sensing their master's downfall, scattered. The man lay there, bleeding, defeated. Killer stood over him, his eyes cold, unblinking. There was no mercy here. "She was never yours," Killer said quietly, his voice filled with an eerie calm. As the plane flew through the early morning sky, the soft hum of the engines the only sound, Killer Till Looks leaned back in his seat. Leora and Morella sat beside each other, finally reunited, the nightmare over. Pulu sat nearby, staring out the window, his mind already on the next hunt. Killer, though, was deep in thought. The mission was complete, the curse temporarily satisfied. But his transformation, the changes in his body and mind, were growing. He could feel the alien machinery inside him expanding, learning, evolving. It had been there since the oracles had first laid the curse on him, but now it was different, stronger, and he knew without a doubt that one day he would have to face the truth of what he was becoming. But for now, the world needed him. The Death Saints needed him, and as long as he could still fight, he would. The oracles had chosen him for a reason. They needed warriors, and Killer Looks was the best they had. A being who could outlast them all.